In 1995, Mario Valencia was a young airman in the United States Air Force stationed at Dahran Airbase in Saudi Arabia when a massive bomb tore through the Khobar Towers barracks, killing 19 of his fellow service members. Mario survived, but the explosion followed him home in ways he never expected: PTSD, guilt, substance abuse. In this episode of Veterans AZ, Mario shares what it took to climb out of that darkness, reclaim his life, and eventually build something new. This is a raw, honest, and ultimately hopeful conversation you don't want to miss. I'm here today with Mario Valencia, a United States Air Force veteran, and today a successful business owner who really has an amazing story to share with us. So Mario, thanks for being with us here today on Veterans AZ.
Thank you for having me, I appreciate it.
Can you take us back to the beginning? Just tell us where you grew up.
Yep.
And what led you to enlist in the Air Force?
I grew up in Chino, California, and I come from a family, I was the third generation to enlist in the military. My grandfather was in World War II, fought in New Guinea. My father was in the Cuban Missile Crisis in the Marine Corps, and my uncle was also in the Marines. And unfortunately, he didn't make it home, and I was named after him. So I grew up in a very patriotic family. We still are, and will continue to be. And I felt like it was my duty to be of service to our country. So I feel very lucky and blessed to be born here and to live here. And it felt like the right thing to do, and I'm glad I signed up.
And so why the Air Force? I heard Marine Corps.
Yes.
Was that a conscious decision? I'm going to do my military service, but a little bit different?
No. I wanted the Marine Corps, and to be honest, Dad supported the Marine Corps, but Mom stepped in and her word went first. So I had the option of Air Force or Marines, and Air Force it was. I was lucky enough to get into that branch. I loved the Air Force, and I'm grateful that I was able to participate.
And so, what was your job in the Air Force? What MOS? I know is a term that some branches use.
Well, at the time there was, I'm not sure what it is now. It was there was either security forces or law enforcement. So I was law enforcement at the time. So I did gate guard duty at McClellan Air Force Base, which is where I was initially stationed, and then security when I went on TDY.
And so that leads us to the next part of your story. And as fate would have it, you were part of a deployment to Dahran Airbase in Saudi Arabia in the summer of 1996.
Yes.
And you and your fellow airmen were housed in the Khobar Towers complex. So the night of June 25th, terrorists exploded a tanker filled with explosives at the base of the tower. And 19 airmen were killed and hundreds more were wounded. Can you take us back to that night? And what do you remember most vividly about the attack and the immediate aftermath?
Things sort of started from the minute we got there. We knew something was going to go on. We were on a 22-hour flight just to get there, at least I was. Many of us were. As soon as we finally got to Saudi Arabia and got to our dormitory, we had an emergency training gas mask on. Mind you, it's 120 degrees outside, the sun is cooking, we're exhausted, and we had to go through that initial, hey, this is serious, we want you to take it serious, be prepared, something's going to happen. And then we were briefed on the potential dangers of that event happening. So mentally, we went from being at home in the States and comfort zone to high alert right away. And I was working the main gate at the time. So the main gate was civilian dormitories on one side and open fields on the other. And my job and duty was to inspect and check all badges, check the vehicles for explosives, all the things you find in danger zones in the Middle East or around the world. And we were at midnight chow, so a lot of our sergeants and leaders were gone on the King Abdul Aziz Airbase across the street and across from the dormitories. So when the bomb went off, it was like a loud crack of lightning that was very, very close. And I was in the middle of searching a vehicle, and I turned around to look, and that's where I remember a flash and that initial like whoosh of air hit. And shortly after that is when I saw the mushroom cloud. And I didn't have my M16, I had my 9mm because I was inspecting vehicles. And on the other side of the fence line were dormitories where Saudi Arabians were coming out in swarms to see what was going on. And vehicles were coming up to our fence lines. And me and the few airmen that were there had to do everything we could at the time to not only pause any traffic going into the dormitory, because we knew that we had been compromised and attacked. But we also had to do what we could with the resources we had to challenge anyone and everybody that was trying to get at least close to or too close to our fence lines, because we weren't sure what their intent was. So it became a very challenging time, and we were unmanned or low on manning power. Sorry, excuse the terms. And for hours, there was this feeling overhead that I could be taken out at any time from these high rises.
And so you're dealing with the initial shock of, and still not really even knowing
Right.
exactly what happened, I'm sure. But all of a sudden, you've got a base you've got to secure
Yes.
from all these
Yes.
folks, and you have no idea what their intent is.
Yeah, and one of the toughest experience I had was a car that wouldn't back up and was driving closer and closer onto the to the fence line. And there was a concrete barrier, and his headlights were on. It was nighttime, and I'm not sure if he couldn't see me or what, but I had my weapon drawn, and I was aiming at him, asking him to go back. When he got to a point to where I feel like he finally saw me, he turned off his headlights, and I was able to see that his young son was in the passenger seat, probably about 5, 6 years old, and his son saw that I had a gun aimed at his father and stepped up and started panicking, screaming. And it's experiences like that, besides the feeling of expecting to be taken out any time from the people that are surrounding me in these high-rise buildings. I don't know who's enemy and who's not. Luckily, it didn't end up in tragedy, but it's something that has stuck with me for a long time.
It sounds incredibly chaotic, obviously. How did things play out or evolve over the next 24 hours, 48 hours? How did the unit kind of deal with the aftermath, and how did you deal with that immediate aftermath?
It took it took some time to get, I believe, to get rounded up and determine where the manning power needed to be, because there was a 25-foot long wide hole across and 20-foot deep hole in the ground. So we had to do everything we could to not allow anybody in while securing our gates. So there was a lot of unknown. There were, airmen coming in, military coming in that were off base trying to get in. And there was a lot of course, emotions and stress about what's happening right now. And we worked through it.
And so how did you changed, do you think, in the immediate aftermath, in the days and weeks? Like, how did you deal with it personally?
For me, I remember being finally getting relieved later on the next day. And I remember having that feeling when I got picked up and I was in the deuce and a half. And it was silence in my ear. I couldn't hear anything. Not sure why, but it was because I was observing all the destruction that was around me and where I was living for a month and a half. And the injuries and airmen's injured and blood on the floor and windows blown out. And I remember thinking about my youth when I felt super safe and realizing that I wasn't there anymore. I dealt with it the best way I could at the time because I knew I still had to get home. I even volunteered to do security while they did taps and held the flag over the coffins a few days later because I felt like that was my duty. And I was still super honored that I was able to do that, but that's another experience I had that was tough.
And so many veterans in situations like yours struggle with survivor's guilt.
Yes.
How did that feeling show up for you, and how did you begin to cope with it?
I dealt with more than just survivor's guilt. For me, it was not being able to use the phone to reach my parents for 2 days, and I was unaccounted for 2 days. So when I finally reached out to them, my family were distraught. So I put my parents through a very tough time. So the guilt of putting them through that, but also the guilt of surviving and wanting to get out of there so bad. But once I was out and I was home and I was safe, I felt guilty, like I should have returned. I shouldn't be home, I should be there. And then I felt guilty for living a safe, normal life, or at least attempting to. And none of that sat well with me. I wasn't able to understand why I survived and they didn't. And I didn't know how to deal with it, and I went to alcohol and other substances to numb it. And I was literally a person who was floating through life, not knowing how to handle my experience.
So I think a term that maybe even then was not as well known is PTSD.
Correct.
And so when did you first realize that that's what you were dealing with? And was there, and with the alcohol abuse, was there a particular turning point that made you seek help?
I started asking my friends at home as soon as I returned home on base, knew something was wrong right away. They recommended that I seek help because I wasn't able to handle it emotionally. I was in tears a lot. I was drinking more than normal. And I asked my commander for help. What I found was a veterans group off base in Sacramento where I was stationed, Vietnam vets and World War II vets that I was able to relate to a small way. They were the ones to explain this, what you experience is called post-traumatic stress disorder, because there really wasn't any services at the time that dealt with post-traumatic stress disorder.
So it sounds like it was obviously a very difficult period in your life. What role do you think your military training or mindset played in both your struggles, but also in your eventual recovery?
When it comes to the struggles, I'm not sure, to be honest. At the time, it was get back to work.
toughen up
and that was it.
yeah.
And I did when I was at work, but I was not in the same mindset. I was not the same person. I was struggling to make it through the day. I remember receiving awards for my experience from my base, and to be honest, that made me feel even worse because I didn't feel, I did my job, I did what I was supposed to do, but I also didn't help to protect the 19 that passed. There's still people that passed away, and I don't need a medal, I don't need an award. That's not important to me at all. So I managed it myself, and it didn't work out for me very well at the time.
And so at some point you find yourself here in Arizona, right?
Yes.
And did things turn around, or were you able to turn them around? I mean, I know, speaking to you, that the answer is yes, eventually.
Yes, eventually.
How did that happen?
Well, it took about 20 plus years of mental health issues that I struggled with, severe depression, anxiety, not being able to sleep, flashbacks, guilt, shame, you name it. I was dealing with it. And my family, unfortunately, and people I knew around me and friends and employers, they all experienced it one way or another. But somehow I was able to function and take care of myself and hold employment. And an old friend and old employee of mine asked me to come out to Arizona. And I sought help out here. Therapies, rehabs, institutions, you name it. But I also get my care from the VA, and they have been super helpful and anything and everything I've asked for. And I know you don't hear that very much, but in my experience, they did. And I went to a rehab here, inpatient. I've been through their emergency rooms many times. And but because I kept asking for help and reaching out for help, when I had my children and they turned 1, I realized I can't live like this anymore. And they became my why.
What would you say was the hardest part of that whole healing journey? How did you push through it? What made you understand that you needed help? You needed to ask for help?
My kids. I was going to school full time. I've always been trying to dig myself out mentally, physically, emotionally, out of this headspace. I call it the self-inflicted mental prison that I was suffering in for a long time. And when I somehow woke up and saw my children being born, and I have twins, a boy and a girl, and I was still struggling their first year of life, just something snapped, and that something was me still struggling with alcohol and me wanting to take my own life and attempting. Because I didn't want them to be exposed to the pain and suffering I was going through. And I was fully aware that all of my experiences and all of my mental health issues that I suffer through, I will pass some of that down to them. And I didn't want to do that. And I felt like it would be better if I was just not here for everyone around me. And when I was in the middle of that attempt, something in my mind said, no, you have a lot more to do right now, and it's time for you to snap out of it. And I did. And from that day forward, I realized that I was going to live my life to the best way possible, to be an example for my children and for my family and for myself. I wanted to start living in a way where I'm allowing myself to feel good. And I wanted to change how my mindset was when it comes to the guilt and shame I had from survivor's guilt, from getting in trouble with the law, from mentally suffering for so long. I finally asked myself a question, and that question was, how am I honoring the 19 that died or every other veteran that died before me by living like this? How long can I live like that? That's not what they would want for me.
And so you were literally at that fork in the road.
Yes.
And you chose life.
I did.
And so tell us about your life today. How's it going? How is it different than you thought it could be?
At the time, I was about 260 pounds. I was pushing 270. I wasn't exercising, eating well. My mental health, of course, like I said before, was struggling. And I started with one change, and that was just eating better. And I started losing weight. And then I started making more health changes because I started naturally losing weight without working out. And I noticed I started feeling better. And I would realize, okay, this is step one. Now let's start exercising. And then I started feeling better. And that was in 2019. So from 2019 to 2020, I lost about 55 pounds. And in 2021, I did my first sprint triathlon. And by 22, I did the full Ironman. I just did the LA Marathon, and I have more events lined up this year. I'm now a multi-franchisee business owner. I'm a founder of running clubs at my two brick and mortar businesses. I have a nonprofit that I started, and there's been a lot of failing forward, but it's all been with good intention. And things are working out great, and I'm enjoying my life in gratitude, and I practice gratitude regularly and every day.
Well, it's really outstanding to hear the whole range of your experiences throughout your life. Do you think there are? I mean, you were literally at rock bottom, and now you've built successful businesses and nonprofits, and I want to talk more about that in a moment. But why is it important that you are sharing your story? What do you hope others, especially veterans, take away from hearing about your experiences?
I feel that if I can help veterans that are struggling with drugs and alcohol, and veterans that have gotten themselves in legal trouble, and veterans that are struggling with financial issues as well, because those are things that I focus on with my nonprofit, but those are also things that I advocate for. And let them know that they don't have to suffer anymore. They are allowed to live a happy, healthy, prosperous life with love and gratitude, financial success and prosperity, and they are allowed to feel good. That is what I advocate for. I'll say this. I read it from a philosopher, Marcus Aurelius, who said, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." And once I read that, I realized that our mental health is much more important than we believe it is. And once we change that inner conversation of I'm supposed to feel this way, a negative way, we're not listening to that correct part of that dialogue, and we're not in control of the dialogue we have in our heads. But once you have that control and realize that you're allowed to live this way, by changing that inner dialogue, by changing those inner beliefs, then things start to change. The last one I have to throw in there is Seneca. He said, we suffer more often in imagination than we do in reality. Those two things, those two, the words that they spoke triggered me to say, wow, I can see it now. Now I see where I was missing. It's mental health, it's that inner conversation, it's that control.
So if you could go back and speak to yourself in the days and weeks and even years after the bombing, what would you say to yourself now, to yourself back then?
To be 100% honest, there's a few things. Your struggle is significant. The pain you're going through is significant. It's important for you to experience this right now, but it's temporary. And the reason why I say that is because if I were to take one of my negative experiences out of my personal life, I wouldn't be where I'm at today and right now. I wouldn't feel how I am today and right now. But I came to the conclusion that happiness is a choice. It's a choice. It's a decision that I had to make, and had to make by saying, I deserve to be happy, and that's how I'm gonna honor my ancestors, that's how I'm gonna honor all of the veterans that passed before me, and that's how I'm gonna honor myself in my life, and that's gonna be my legacy.
So your life now is dedicated to family, to your business, but you also spend time serving your community through
Yes.
your nonprofit. In fact, you just earned a Levine Legends Award.
Yes, I did.
So congratulations for that. Just tell
Thank
us
you.
more about the work you're doing in your community and why that's important to you.
It started out where I was asked to speak at local high schools about being a business owner. And I really didn't speak about being a business owner. I spoke about mindset. I spoke about what do they want in their life and how that inner conversation and mental health plays. But the happiness of your life is on the other side of struggles. It's on the other side of pain. It's on the other side of doing things that get you out of your comfort zone. It's on the other side of doing things that you normally don't want to do, like work out, like eat healthy, like manage your finances. Those are three things that I'm advocating for, and they're still in their infancy, is nutrition, education, and literacy, where to access that. Because once you eat good, you're taking care of your body, you're feeling better. Physical activity, my running clubs, trying to host them, promote them, run them. My next step is financial education and literacy clinics, because if I can share what I'm practicing, if you can do these things, if I can provide resources in those three areas, which I'm including now the environment by planting trees, how can I help improve how the life experience is?
Tell me the name of your nonprofit and where could people find more information about it?
It's called Unity in Bridges. You can find it at unityinbridges.org. I'm also on social media. Like I said, it's in infancy. You'll see a few things here and there posted. It's baby steps. It's been a couple years, and I'm looking forward to doing as much as I can while I balance that life and family, because I feel like that's my duty. If I didn't love it, I wouldn't do it, but I do.
Well, you're doing a really outstanding job, and so thank you, Mario, for joining us today and sharing your story. We really appreciate your honesty and learning about your journey, and we just wish you the absolute best in the future.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank
you for having me on the show.